Now, it's not only the Minister of Budget and Planning that's concerned about budgeting by states, but the House of Representatives Committee on Judiciary is also worried that state judiciaries are not adequately funded. At the opening of the budget defense session for federal judiciary, the chairman of the committee, Mr. Aminu Shegari, says that heads of the judiciary at state level are always at the mercy of the executive, which, according to him, contravenes the principle of independence of the judiciary.
It's another budget defense session in the House of Representatives. Several committees sat with ministries, departments and agencies to consider the budget proposal for 2016. At the sitting of the House Committee on Information, the Nigerian Television Authority made a revenue projection of 5 billion naira in the 2016 budget. But members of the committee insist on carrying out an inquiry to know the capacity of the station to generate such revenue.
I'm a little bit worried. We have channels, we have AIT, we have so many private stations. And I'm aware their sustainability is solely dependent on their IGR. From their IGR, they take care of their personnel costs, overhead, capital expenditure. Now, tell me, why would government continue to fund NTA?
NTA has a large overhead. Politically, we are mandated to run 118 stations, and we have almost 5,000 staff spread across the country, and we have to provide equipment, cameras, vehicles, and so on, And before IPPIS came, NTA had to be paying the salaries of all those people. So that is our issue.
We need to find out every document and all the expenditure that was made during the time of the past regime, because it's possible that when we get 3 years in a row on status inquiry, we'll be able to know the entire details. How conducive is NTA to re-agree with them on this projection. So outside the budget defense, they are coming now. My motion is that we should do status inquiry on NTA for the past 3 years.
The issue of budget padding came up again during the sitting of the House Committee on Marine. The Maritime Academy of Nigeria had written to the committee to request for amendments in the budgetary proposal because some of the items were duplicated.
If you look at the items here, from 23 capital expenditure, which was total of 476 million, now you'll see that everything was duplicated. Yes, everything was duplicated just to pad. It's budget padding.
The committee has promised to look at the proposed amendments from the Academy before proceeding with the consideration of the entire budget proposal.
A federal high court in Abuja has granted leave to the National Publicity Secretary of the PDP, Mr. Pt.2, to file a no-case submission in the charges of money laundering and diversion of public funds. This comes 1 week after the prosecution closed its case. Justice Obong Abang ruled that the accused is at liberty to take any decision that he considers proper in his own defense. Our correspondent Amaka Okafor reports.
Main opposition party spokesman Mr. Metu, in the company of his wife and relations, chatting away as they waited for the court proceedings to commence. As soon as the judge arrived, Mr. Metu, who was to open his defense, told the court that he had filed an application. But the prosecutor, Mr. Sylvester Tahir, interjected by telling the court that the prosecution had an amended charge to replace the initial charge for which Mr. Metu had entered a not guilty plea. According to the prosecutor, the amendment, which involved adding the word directly and formed to the 7-count charge, was harmless. With no objection from the defense counsel, the charges were again read to Mr. Metu, who entered a not guilty plea.
The amended charge, just an harmless and innocuous one. We merely dotted the I's and crossed the T's so that we conform with the necessary elements of the offense as stipulated under the law.
As far as we are concerned, whether it is the old one or the new one, we feel that they have not made out a case.
done with that, it was time for the business of the day. But rather than open a defense, Metu, through his counsel, opted to make a no-case submission. He urged the court to allow him do so through a written address. The court agreed with Metu that he was at liberty to decide how to handle his defense. While counsel to Metu explained the reason for his client's decision, counsel to EFCC dismissed the move as a delayed tactics by the defense.
Well, we have reviewed the evidence led by the prosecution so far, and we have the view that they have not established the ingredients of the offenses charged. And it is a defendant's prerogative to move the court to hold that there is no basis for the defendant to enter his defense.
Now, in the criminal trial process, for those of us in the prosecution business, we know that it is normally a stopgap. It's one of the bridges that normally we cross. Most defendants would not willingly like to open their defenses, no matter how tight the case is.
The case has been adjourned to today to allow Mr. Metu open his defense, but having chosen to go the no-case submission route, Mr. Metu will try to convince the court that the EFCC has made out no case whatsoever against him. As such, the charges should be quashed. Amaka Okafor, Channels Television News.
It's about a week since rival cult groups stormed Omo community in Rivers State, engaging themselves in a fierce fight that led to the killing of 6 cult members and over 20 others. Since then, the police has been trying to unravel the true cause of the clash, and from the office of the police commissioner, about 6 bodies so far have been recovered. Now residents of the community are living in fear of reprisals that the cultists may return to foment more trouble. Many say this situation does not present the state and the country well before the international community. Well, let's move on now, and seeing that the Chief of Army Staff, that's Lieutenant General Tukur Buratai, has told a delegation from Amnesty International that the military is making conscious effort to check cases of human rights abuses by officers. Amnesty International had accused the Nigerian military of about 20,000 cases of extrajudicial executions since 2012. Lieutenant General Buratai insists officers are trained to discharge their responsibilities professionally. And he assured members of the public, as well as the local and international human rights bodies, that the Nigerian Army, under his leadership, will investigate all cases of human rights complaints.
There is indeed a serious concern that Nigeria needs to address, that its military is implicated in committing serious forms of war crimes and possibly crimes against humanity. We've looked into various aspects of this. We've documented over 27 cases of extrajudicial executions where we believe over 1,200 men and boys may have been extrajudicially executed since 2012.
We have already established the Human Rights Desk. Before the establishment of this human rights here in Army headquarters, we have established a contact group between the Nigerian Army and the National Human Rights Commission. All issues of human rights that have been forwarded to the attention of the Nigerian Army, we've investigated them and followed them to their logical conclusions. Similarly, all those issues that were brought to the Army where human rights were said or alleged to have been violated, we have equally investigated them.
All right, now let's try and reconnect with Mr. Nestinet Bele of Amnesty International. Mr. Bele, I hope you can hear me now. But I was talking about how you think that clashes like this can continue, seeing as in terms of the police records, we have 6 bodies recovered already.
I'm sorry, if you can repeat the question again, you're breaking up a little bit. I'm really sorry.
Okay, I'm saying that how do you think this sort of challenge and this sort of clash can be resolved? Why does it continue, seeing as 6 bodies have been recovered and 20 others have also been killed?
Well, if I understood correctly, we've had Amnesty International here is in Abuja, having a meeting with various officials, including the Minister of Justice and Attorney General, and today with the Chief of Army Staff to discuss the key recommendations. Recommendations which we highlighted in the report we published last year in June and April. As you may recall, we've documented the commission of serious crimes, including war crimes and possible crimes against humanity, which we believe have been committed by both sides of the conflict, Boko Haram and the military forces. So we're here in Abuja now to discuss with various government officials on progress made towards implementation of those recommendations, and specifically towards investigation, towards impartial, independent, and thorough investigations of alleged crimes, including war crimes and crimes against humanity.
Yes, I understand that, but we're also trying to look at the clashes in Rivers State in the last 1 week. What's your take on that, if you have information on that as well?
Well, we're researching various allegations, but the purpose of our meetings and mission this time around in Abuja is actually to discuss violations committed in the context of the conflict in the Northeast. And this is one of the serious concerns we've been raising with government officials, particularly with the previous administration. And we've been quite encouraged with the President's speech at the beginning that the administration will be seriously investigating these crimes, that the first task of the incoming Attorney General will be investigating these crimes. And so far, we've not seen meaningful steps taken on that regard, so we're here to discuss those recommendations and to see what has happened. But unfortunately, the picture we've gathered so far is that there are still a long way to go before such an investigation is going to be initiated.
All right, as we speak, many families are grieving tonight in Rivers and in other parts of the Northeast. In terms of your recommendations, are you looking at any sort of compensation for the victims and the families? What's being done about that?
Well, we obviously do our research. When we do our investigations, we talk to victims and families of victims, and witnesses who've seen violations that has happened. And our recommendations and our call for the government is to ensure that these victims see justice being done, that accountability comes to Nigeria. And as part of our recommendation, we're also calling for effective remedy to victims of these heinous crimes and violations. If I understood correctly, these are the recommendations at the table. And we believe that in the positive spirit which the President has announced since last year, these actions need to be taken immediately, particularly towards ensuring accountability of these crimes.
All right, Director for Research Africa of Amnesty International, Mr. Nestinet Bele, thank you for sharing your thoughts with us on the News at 10 tonight. We move on from there, and when the News at 10 returns, Nigerian stock market rebounds by 0.85% after 2 days of lackluster performance, and that'll be on business. To John Scan.